The first time it happened, I was fast asleep. At least I thought I was. Something cold brushed against my ear, and a voice whispered my name. It was soft, trembling, almost broken, like someone pleading through tears. I sat up instantly, my heart pounding, my roommate snoring on the other side of the room. But the whisper, it hadn't come from her. It had come from the dark corner of the room where no one was standing. That was my very first night in Pemberton Hall, and what I experienced there still follows me to this day. When I chose Eastern Illinois University, Pemberton Hall was offered as my dorm. People warned me, students, even a professor, that the building had a reputation. At first, I thought it was just another haunted dorm rumor. Every college has one, right? But the stories about Pemberton weren't just campfire tales. They had names, dates, real history. Over 100 years ago, in the early 1900s, tragedy struck inside this very building. A young student was attacked late at night, alone in her room. Some say it was another student who did it. Others whisper it was a stranger who slipped inside. No one really knows for sure. But the girl was found dead, brutally murdered. The person who discovered her body was Mary Hawkins, the first matron of Pemberton Hall. She'd been tasked with protecting the young women who lived there, but she hadn't arrived in time. The guilt consumed her, and in the weeks after, Mary took her own life. That was over a century ago, but according to campus lore, neither of them ever left. I moved in during late August. The sun was still hot, cicadas screamed in the trees, and students laughed outside. Nothing about the place felt threatening. The building was old, sure. Long brick walls, heavy wooden doors, hallways that smelled faintly of dust and age. But I brushed it off. That night, after everyone had settled in, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The building creaked with the weight of history. Pipes groaned, floors popped. Normal old building stuff, I told myself. But just as I started to drift to sleep, the air turned icy. My arms prickled with goosebumps, and when I exhaled, I saw my breath in the glow of the desk lamp. And then came the rattling, like a doorknob shaking violently at the end of the hall. I told myself it was another student. But then came the whisper, "Help me." So faint, yet so close it felt like it came from just behind the door of my own room. After that, it only got worse. Night after night, I woke up around 3 a.m. The whispers always came then. Sometimes they murmured my name. Other times I heard faint sobs. A few times it sounded like two voices, one pleading, one comforting, both tangled in grief. One night I bolted upright to a blood-curdling scream. My roommate didn't stir. She slept through it like nothing had happened, but I sat there shaking. The echo of that scream lodged deep in my bones. I realized something chilling that night. The spirits weren't trying to wake her. They were trying to wake me. Students whispered about the upper floors, the ones where the murder supposedly happened. People said doors rattled on their own, and shadows passed across the windows even when no one lived up there. So, of course, I had to see for myself. One night I crept up the stairwell alone. The moment I stepped onto the upper landing, the air changed, heavy, oppressive. It felt like the building itself was watching me. The hallway stretched into darkness. Every door was shut, but as I walked, I swore I heard breathing. Slow, ragged, coming from behind the doors. Then, at the far end, one doorknob began to shake. Violently, like someone trapped inside was clawing to get out. I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hands. Then, 3 sharp knocks from the other side of the door. Knock, knock, knock. That was enough. I ran. The whispers followed me back to my room. I tried to ignore them, bury myself in homework, music, anything to keep my mind off it. But the dead don't care if you believe in them. One night I woke to the weight of someone sitting at the edge of my bed. The mattress sank. My blanket tugged tight. For a split second I thought it was my roommate. But when I looked over, she was sound asleep. Slowly I turned back, and I saw her. A woman dressed in clothing that belonged to another century. Pale face, hollow eyes, brimming with sorrow. She leaned forward so close I could feel the icy air of her breath, and she whispered, "I tried to save her." I froze in terror, and then, as quickly as she appeared, she was gone. That was when it all clicked. The whispers, the rattling doors, the footsteps and crying. It wasn't just one ghost, it was two. The murdered girl, still lost, still terrified, and Mary Hawkins, the matron who blamed herself for not protecting her. But knowing who they were didn't bring comfort. It made it worse. Because now they knew I understood, and they wanted me to listen. My last night in Pemberton was the worst of them all. I woke to the sound of scratching, long, deep scratches across the wall beside my bed. I turned on the lamp, and there they were, fresh claw marks dragging from the ceiling down toward me. The room grew cold again. My breath came out in clouds. The whispers rose louder and louder until they filled the room. Two voices, one crying, one begging, "Forgive me, forgive me." The desk rattled, the lamp flickered, the floor vibrated beneath me. It felt like the entire dorm had come alive, shaking with their grief. And then it all stopped. Silence. The scratches vanished before my eyes, fading back into smooth plaster as if they'd never been there. I moved out of Pemberton Hall the next day, but leaving didn't end it. Sometimes I wake in my apartment to the sound of footsteps pacing in the hallway. Sometimes I hear the faint rattle of a doorknob. And sometimes, late at night, I see her again, sitting at the edge of my bed, whispering the same words over and over. I tried to save her. So when you close your eyes tonight, remember this. Pemberton Hall still stands. Students laugh in its rooms, study in its halls, and sleep where death once lingered. But the dead never rest. And if you ever find yourself wandering those halls alone and you hear footsteps behind you, don't turn around, because if you see them, they'll never stop following you. Have you ever walked into a place and instantly felt like you were being watched? Because the night I snuck into the tower of Urbana High School, I learned the kind of truth that doesn't let you sleep. I swear to you, what I saw up there, what I heard up there, wasn't meant for the living. It started as a dare. My friends knew the story, a teacher who hanged herself in the tower decades ago, and a boy who died somewhere else on campus but never left. They told me the tower was haunted. Everyone said so, but nobody had the guts to go inside at night. Nobody but me. The halls were quiet when I slipped in through the side door. My flashlight barely cut through the dark, and every step echoed so loudly I thought someone would hear me. The building smelled of dust and old paint, that sharp chemical scent like something rotting beneath the surface. And then I saw it, at the top of the stairwell leading up to the tower. The walls were scarred, the paint curled and peeling like something had clawed its way out. But what chilled me wasn't the peeling paint, it was the fresh white streaks of repainting. I'd heard the janitors covered it up again and again, yet the damage always came back, always. As I climbed, I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. At first I thought it was water dripping somewhere above, but no. The sound was too steady, too deliberate, like knuckles against wood. Like someone knew I was coming. I froze, holding my breath, and then the light went out. My flashlight flickered, sputtered, and I was swallowed in darkness. That's when I saw it, a faint glow, just ahead. Not warm, not comforting, cold, pale, flickering, like a lantern swinging in the wind, though I could feel no breeze. The tower door was heavy, old wood, cracked down the middle. I pushed it open, and it screamed like it hadn't moved in years. Inside was silence. The room was small, circular, with windows that looked out over the town, except every pane was clouded, smeared with something dark, like fingerprints pressed from the inside. I lifted my flashlight again, and that's when I saw it, a rope hanging from the ceiling beam, frayed at the end. My stomach dropped. Every story I'd ever heard about the teacher, it was right here. This was the spot. I wanted to run, but then I heard something else, a giggle, high pitched, childlike, but warped, too close, too hollow. I spun around, shining my light, and for a split second, just a split second, I saw him, a boy, no older than 15, standing in the corner. His skin was gray, like ash, his eyes wide, unblinking. And then he wasn't there. The tapping started again, only this time it was behind me, right behind me. I turned so fast I almost dropped the flashlight. Nothing, but the rope above me was swinging. I swear I didn't touch it. And then I heard the creak, the sound of weight pulling on wood. I looked up. She was there, her head tilted, hair hanging down in front of her face. The rope dug deep into her neck, twisting as her body swayed back and forth. But the worst part, her arms weren't limp. They were reaching down toward me. I bolted. I don't even remember my feet hitting the stairs, but I swear the tapping followed me all the way down, faster, sharper, like footsteps that weren't mine. When I burst out of the tower door, the hallway lights flickered on at once, every single bulb. For a moment, the whole place was glowing, too bright, too unnatural, and on the wall ahead of me, I saw words scratched into the fresh paint. "You can't paint us out." The paint peeled in long strips as I watched, curling to the floor like dead skin. I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping in the night air. My friends never believed me when I told them. They laughed it off, said I'd scared myself. But here's the thing. 2 weeks later, they repainted the tower floors again, covered up the peeling, and the very next morning, the same words came back. "You can't paint us out." So if you ever find yourself walking through Urbana High School and you hear tapping in the walls or see the paint curling like something alive, don't go upstairs, because the tower doesn't just remember the dead, it wants more, and maybe next time it'll be you. The last thing I remember before the lights went out was his face. A man in an old dirt-stained suit standing in the middle of the hallway. His skin gray stretched tight against his bones, and his eyes, black hollow pits, locked on me. He didn't blink. He didn't move. He just stared. I told myself I was dreaming. But when the air turned icy and the sound of boots scraped the tiles behind me, I knew I was awake. Tell me. Would you stay in a school if you knew it was built on top of a graveyard? Because I did, and it almost cost me my life. When I got the night shift at Lee Williams High School in Kingman, Arizona, I thought I had it made. A quiet job, easy money, empty hallways. But I didn't know the truth. This school wasn't just another building. It was standing on the bones of the dead. Decades earlier, the ground had been a pioneer cemetery. Hundreds were buried there, men, women, children who had died crossing the harsh Arizona desert. Most of their graves were unmarked, forgotten as the town grew. During construction of the school, workers uncovered 11 coffins. 11, and instead of relocating the cemetery properly, they just kept digging. Some say they moved the remains. Others whisper that bones were left behind, hidden under the foundation. I didn't believe it at first. But when you mop those hallways after midnight, when the whole building groans as if it's breathing, you start to wonder if the dead ever forgave us for disturbing their rest. The first few nights were strange. Lights flickered even after I replaced the bulbs. The motion sensors in the hallways kept clicking on when I was the only person in the building. At first, I thought it was faulty wiring, or maybe rats. But then came the footsteps, always just behind me. I'd push the mop forward, hear a shuffle, stop, nothing, take another step, and there it was again. Boots dragging across the tiles, slow, heavy, following me through the empty corridors. I'd spin around, my flashlight cutting through the dark. Empty, always empty. One night I was cleaning near the gym. It was around 1 a.m. when I heard it. My name, whispered. A woman's voice, soft and broken, like someone exhaling their last breath right into my ear. I froze. The mop handle slipped from my sweaty hands and clattered against the floor. The sound came again, louder this time. Liev. I swear to you, I wasn't wearing headphones. My phone was in the locker room, turned off. The doors were locked. I was completely alone. Except I wasn't. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks. But soon, I saw them, dark figures drifting down the hallway. Not shadows, people, or what used to be people. Men in long, ragged coats, women in pioneer dresses, their faces pale and hollow as if carved from wax. Their eyes sunk deep into their skulls. Their skin looked stretched thin, like parchment left too long in the sun. They didn't walk normally. Their feet dragged, slow, uneven, like the weight of their graves was still pulling them down. And the worst part? They knew I could see them. A week later, I was closing up when I heard it. A metallic slam that echoed down the hallway. The lockers, one after another, they rattled violently, doors banging so loud I thought they'd tear off their hinges. I dropped my keys, my flashlight beam trembling as I ran toward the noise. Then silence, dead silence. But one locker door was hanging open, just one. I stepped closer, my breath fogging in the freezing air. Inside, scratched deep into the metal, were two words that froze my blood. Get out! The scratches weren't fresh. They were rusted, eaten into the steel like they'd been there for decades. But I knew they hadn't been there the night before. The last night I worked there was the night everything changed. The halls felt heavier than usual, the air thick like it was pressing against my chest. The lights flickered once, twice, and then every bulb in the hallway went black. The silence was unbearable. I could hear my heartbeat pounding in my ears. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. That's when I saw him, at the far end of the corridor, a man, still waiting, watching. His clothes were old, ripped and dust-stained, like he'd just crawled out of the desert. His face was gaunt, skin gray and sunken, his mouth twisted slowly, stretching into a grin that didn't belong to anything human. And then he lifted his arm, slowly, deliberately, and pointed directly at me. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My whole body locked as if the floor itself was holding me down. His mouth opened wider and wider, but no sound came out, just a silence so deep it screamed in my ears. I blinked just once, and he was gone. I don't remember running. I don't remember grabbing my things. One moment I was frozen in that hallway, and the next I was outside, gasping for air under the night sky. I quit that same night, never went back. But the nightmares, those stayed. Sometimes I dream I'm still there, pushing the mop, footsteps echoing behind me. Sometimes I see the faces, sunken, empty, waiting in the shadows. And sometimes when I wake in the middle of the night, I hear it. That whisper, leave. To this day, Lee Williams High School still stands. Students laugh in the classrooms. Teachers give their lessons. Life goes on. But under their feet, the dead are still there, forgotten, restless, angry. So if you ever find yourself alone in those halls after dark and the lights flicker, If you hear footsteps behind you, slow and heavy, don't look back, because once you see them, they never let you go.